হ্যালো এভরিওয়ান। দেশ এবং দেশের বাইরে থেকে যারা আজকে দ্য এনলাইটেনিং শো এর 10ম এপিসোড দেখছেন, সকলকে আমি জানাচ্ছি শুভ সন্ধ্যা। আজকে আমাদের এই শো এর 10ম এপিসোড। আমরা গত সপ্তাহে ব্যক্তিগত কিছু ব্যস্ততার কারণে এবং অন্য কিছু কাজে আমাদের ইনভলভমেন্টের কারণে আমরা গত সপ্তাহে শোটা নিয়ে আপনাদের মাঝে উপস্থিত হতে পারিনি। তবে আমরা এই সপ্তাহে খুবই স্পেশাল একজন অতিথিকে আমাদের সাথে নিয়ে এসেছি। Actually, today we have a very special guest with us. This man is currently working as Registrar of BRAC University. He was also the Registrar and CEO of Asian University for Women. He previously served successively as Registrar, Academic Registrar, and in other senior positions in the UK higher education sector. Besides, he is engaged in different social, humanitarian, and voluntary activities. He is none other than Mr. Dowland. I would request Mr. Dave to join with me on the screen.
Well, good evening. It's good to be with you.
Good evening, sir. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you.
Sir, actually, thanks for being with us. And how your days are going during this pandemic, during this period of pandemic, how your days are going? I know you are a very busy person.
Well, yeah. The pandemic started dramatically when I was at Asian University for Women in Chittagong. And the university moved very fast. And within about 24 hours, we turned from open institution, everyone coming in and out, to lockdown. And then we moved the whole institution online. And that's still happening. And then I had several months in Chittagong as part of a community of hundreds of us living on site. And gradually students started to go home to their countries. Everyone's now working online. But that was in a way a kind of special time, really, to be in a community of people living under lockdown. And you see, how well everybody lived together, through that time. And then in July, then I moved up here to Dhaka to BRAC University. And it's been a mixture of, starting a new job, meeting a lot of people from an apartment where I'm talking to you now, together with occasional visits to the campus to get jobs done. But it's such a strange way to start a new job, under a lockdown like this. But it's okay. You can still meet a lot of people, and like most of us, we're just getting used to working online now. So that's how it's gone, really. It's been okay, really. But we can't wait to be able to get back to more face-to-face contact before long.
Sir, actually, how do you take this pandemic? And what's coronavirus is definitely this not something that we shouldn't care for. This something that we are going through a very bad time. So what do you think? What in what kind of thought, and what's your philosophical perspective regarding this coronavirus, and what we are learning from this pandemic? Is there anything that we should learn from this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, it seems one of the things that we have to learn is that we just have to have more environmental responsibility, because there are concerns that this may have come partly from environmental imbalances and damage that we've caused to our environment. So I think that's one of the major things to learn. I know that your group is interested in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, so you're very much onto a level with that theme. So I think that's very significant. Another thing, of course, there are all sorts of things you learn from living through coronavirus, and I think one of them is how resourceful people are. They adapt to dealing with all kinds of situations. And, so this is what we've seen happening in universities, very swift changes to working in different ways. We were just talking about it, going online and having to find ways to support people who are no longer there face to face. It's been stressful and difficult for people. Again, I know your organization's interested in mental health, and it's been a big pressure for so many people. I'd be interested, you might like to say a bit more about that. but there have been many positive stories, I think, of people supporting each other. And I think perhaps the third and final thing I'd say is what a wonderful thing it's been to see, you know, around Bangladesh. There's such a strong sense of community mindedness around. But lots of young people, people of all ages actually, going out in an organized, responsible way, you know, to help destitute people who wouldn't have any food if it wasn't for that kind of intervention, you know, with coronavirus going on, helping people who are missing out in education, all sorts of things like that. I think it's one of the most wonderful things that we've seen, you know, through coronavirus.
Yes, maybe the humanitarian activities among us have been increased, but I think it's an alarm from the nature that we should be more respectful to this mother nature. Actually, hope things will go well after finishing the punishment given by our mother nature.
Yes, yeah. There'll be more of it otherwise. You know, we really are getting a severe warning here, I think. Yeah.
Exactly. So now my question is to you. How long have you been living in this country? And have you learned Bangla a little bit?
Oh, well, I've been here now just over 2 years, and it's gone incredibly fast. I just had my second anniversary just a couple of weeks ago. So not that long. I don't want you to test me on Bangla yet. I've learned a few words. Don't ask me which ones, because I will. But I really would. It's high time for me to start to learn more of the Bangla language. I think I'm fascinated by it. One of the things I've been doing a lot of is reading about the history of Bengal, the region and the culture. And I think to learn some language as well to go with it. I'm fascinated with the Bangla language because it's one of the biggest languages in the world in terms of the numbers of people who speak it.
Right.
And of course, it's such a rich language. You know, you see elements of Persian in that language. You see even bits of English occasionally coming into it, which is quite good for someone like me because it helps me to understand what people are really talking about sometimes when they throw a bit of English in. But you see the richness of the history and the culture of this region, that so many people have come from, so many nationalities, so many races, and they've long since entered the bloodstream and they've affected the language. I think it's a wonderful thing. The other thing that I think I found really moving is to take part in the Mother Languages Day. You know, so the Bangladesh's Mother Languages Day, which is celebrated as an international festival of the world. But, you know, to see this as a country that is built partly on the fight for a language and a culture, and that is celebrated each year. You know, so I think that's been quite a special moment over the 2 years each year to take part in that festival.
Sir, we all know that you are currently working as a registrar at BRAC University.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong, currently all the academic activities of BRAC University is closed, officially closed. Actually, maybe it's maybe they are continuing their education, or they are maybe getting connected with their students through online platform, but officially they're closed, and the administrative activities are closed as well. So maybe you're free right now. So how do you pass your leisure time?
Well, it's a really good question to ask, because it's a good question for me to have an opportunity to deny what you said, you see. So I appreciate that. When we say closed, yeah, I mean, the government closed the public and private universities in the sense of saying, you know, they couldn't operate physically. You know, so there isn't teaching going on campus at the moment in line with that directive. But they're very much open, actually. You know, the teaching and learning are going online. Actually, BRAC University has introduced its own online system, a system called BUCS. And it's quite a good system. A lot's being learned about how it can operate and how to improve it as well. But that's a vehicle for students to take part in teaching. We know it's challenging for a lot of them as well, but every effort's being made to help them to take part in that. So all the teaching's going on still. The administration's still working. I mean, I've just come back from quite a long day, you know, so we're all working. You know, to continue to much the same thing we would have done before, actually, if anything, possibly a bit busier. And the support services are operating as well. You know, if you need counselling, you can get counselling. The student societies are operating online. So we've just moved everything, you know, online, actually, but the university is basically still running. So, yeah, lots of activity going on, actually, just in strange and unfamiliar circumstances, really.
Then you are not free, actually. So the term leisure doesn't go with you.
Leisure.
Sir, actually, do you miss the physical presence of your students?
Oh, yes. I think I'm really conscious of, you know, we all are, the impact. If any of them happen to be watching this, I think we'd want to say to them quite directly, you know, what a hard experience it is for them to not be on site, having to use the technology to learn. There's been a big shift to the semester. The semesters are shorter necessarily. And it's just hard to communicate, however hard we try. If you can be with people, look each other in the face and hear each other's views and respond to each other, it makes such a difference. I think that's true as well, the Asian University for Women. You still feel very much a sense of connection with them, but it's a wonderful thing. I mean, I personally enjoy it very much as well, but being part of a residential community of about 1,000 of us living in Chittagong together, students from so many countries. And it's harder to do that if you've dispersed all those countries. But you can do it. You see, this is the positive things. There are ways round it. Universities have still got a life going on. But for sure, we'd love to be back, and we're impatient in a way to get back when it's safe for us to do it. We'll have to have a transition to get back. But when we can, I think it will be great for all of us at last to do that. Yeah. So thank you for asking that question, actually. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, sir. So do you think Bangladesh is currently ready to make an online platform and conducting the classes? Is Bangladesh ready right now? And our institutions, educational institutions, are ready to conduct online classes right now?
Well, I think there's been a big investment.
As we are not a developed world, as well not from developed world, we're a very poor country. From that perspective, I said.
Well, I think there's a concept of digital Bangladesh from what I've heard. You know, there's been a big investment in digital development in Bangladesh. There's a long way to go, of course. You know, there's no doubt, you know, there are big issues of broadband speed, you know, that are affecting students when they're trying to study or meetings or whatever. And I think universities like BRAC University, I mentioned just now, there's been an effort to introduce quite quickly something called the BUC system, so that students can participate even if they're having problems of internet speed or access or whatever. But of course, it's challenging. So there's no doubt there is a shortfall there. But I think we have to go with it, because I think that digital, you know, having a digital element to education, just been talking about in another discussion actually just now, this is going to be part of the future. You know, there are all kinds of interesting things you can do, valuable things you can do with education if you're using digital technology. So I hope the country will continue to invest in that concept of digital Bangladesh and build up the infrastructure across the country so there can be more even participation. I mean, we know as well, of course, there are groups, marginalized people who are kind of out of, you know, who don't have equal access to digital technology, people in, you know, refugees, people in the hill tracts, marginalized groups of all sorts. And it's really important that they are included as well, you know, as the country develops its infrastructure. So yes, you know, I hope we're going to see that it continue to develop, but it's obvious that there is a foundation there already for all the problems that we're experiencing at the moment.
So I think maybe we are coping up with it pretty well, as our university BUP has decided to run at least one course through online
Yes.
from the next semester. So,
Yes.
this is a good decision, I think, because this kind of pandemic may come more and more. So it's not a good decision to only run classes through face to face. So
Well,
this
Sakif,
might be.
yeah.
And,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yes, sir. So it's a good decision that we are conducting our classes through online platform, and we have created I think a strong platform so that we can conduct our classes, online classes, pretty well from the near future. So,
well, yes, Sakif, I think you're right. You know that there's been a distinction, it seems, between the private and public universities. That I hear a lot of public universities, they've not been operating online, and so there's a concern about students losing time for their studies, and having to add quite a lot of extra time to graduate. Quite a number of the private universities have been operating online, so BRAC University moved online as fast as it could. I think the University of Liberal Arts is another good example of an institution that's invested. And I've also heard of East Delta University, which is committed to online learning. So a number of examples. I think, in some ways universities are competing, but we need to work together, to collaborate in the interests of students right across the country. So I appreciate what you're saying about your own university. We should be talking with each other in our shared interest, actually.
Right. So Corona pandemic has actually made us a little bit efficient in technology, in using technology. So that's the good point. Yeah.
I think so.
So most of the people you work with are definitely Bengali speaking people. So you got to know them pretty well during these 2 years. In these 2 years, and actually, right now, I want to know 2 good things about Bangladeshi people and 2 bad things about Bangladeshi people from your own perspective.
Bad things about Bangladeshi people?
Maybe it's not a very, very difficult question for you.
Oh, no, yes, sir. Coming to Bangladesh, for me, it was kind of love at first sight. I still remember the time I first came here and I landed at Chittagong Airport. And within a few minutes, I thought, I really like this this country. It's a privilege to be here. And I think a lot of us as expats feel that very much, or we wouldn't be here, and good things. I'm not sure about bad things. I think the way I'd answer your question is, one of the things I think that is very striking about most Bangladeshi people is how thoroughly human they are, how engaged with life, how resourceful they are. And I think who couldn't admire a country that I'm just about old enough actually to remember I was almost a baby at the time. One of my first memories is of seeing programs, for children in the UK in 1971 when the Liberation War was going on. And what we were shown on our TV screens was a very sympathetic coverage of children in Bangladesh about our age, or a bit older actually, and being told, they're part of the struggle for independence. And that was my first memory of Bangladesh. It goes back that far. I think oddly enough, actually, one of my first memories in my life. Strange how that stayed with me. And I think that who could not admire a country that fought for independence with the support of much of the world, actually. And then it had to face natural disasters, and it was resourceful enough to deal with those. And you see nowadays how well this country, how expert this country is at moving huge numbers of people out of the way of cyclones or whatever. So you don't get the big casualties anymore. So you see, I think it's not just about being Bangladeshi. I think it's about being human being as well, because human beings are like this. But, Bangladeshi people, they have so many challenges thrown at them and they find ways round them. So I think that is something to admire and respect. And it's something to notice as an international here again and again. I think another thing that I notice about Bangladesh generally, I'm going to give you 3 things, I'm afraid, but you asked me for 2, and I think I give you 2, try to connect them together. So I'm more or less in answering your question. I think another one is generally how hospitable Bangladeshi people are. And you know, when you're a foreigner and international visiting a country as a guest, you appreciate that very much, to see that people are welcoming and, you know, willing to have you in the country and to, you know, make you feel at home. And it makes a big difference and makes you feel all the more, you know, how much you want to contribute in return to that. And I think the other thing is just, you know, I mean, I'm from Asian University for Women as well as BRAC University. And, you know, I think it says something about Bangladesh that it's a tolerant country, really, on the whole. You can always get better, but on the whole, it's a place that has respect for different religions, as far as I can see. You know, so you have, for the most part, there are tensions sometimes, but for the most part, Muslims, Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, people of so many faiths living together. You know, and I've seen some good examples of this. You know, how, and I think, you know, people generally live together and they create a space, you know, for people of different beliefs and so on. I think that's something to admire. Now, you asked me about what's bad, and I don't think I'd answer in quite those terms, but I think I'd just say, I think it's obvious this is a country that is doing well, but it could do a lot better. And part of the solution may be in the hands of young people of Bangladesh, like you guys, you in your organization. But it can do better. If we think about higher education, there's a lot of good stuff going on in higher education, but there are all kinds of ways that it can improve, you know. And so I think there are, of course, any country can always do better. And I think I would invite reflections from Bangladeshi young people. You often do reflect on how you'd like to see your country improve. I'd throw that, you know, back on you, really. And so I haven't given you two bad things. I think I've just given you a kind of reflection, you know, that I have a sense of a country that, you know, lots of good economic indicators pre-coronavirus, improvements in, you know, people coming out of poverty. But you can see the extent to which there can be still, you know, much improvement in education, in the you know, approaches to the welfare of people in society, making sure that we deal with issues of extreme poverty and we're not leaving out the marginalized communities. Those sorts of things are obvious challenges, you know, for Bangladesh, really. What do you think of that as an answer? I mean, would you like to, you know, reply to that maybe, or tell me what you think?
Thank you, sir, for being so polite and being so honest regarding our activities and everything, you know. Well, sir, now I have a question to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thanks, sir. Well, now I have a question to you that I know that we live in a very poor country and we have so many obstacles like corruption and infrastructural weakness and so many. But we have willpower to be developed, and our government is also trying to achieve those goals that we want to achieve. And but actually, what's the main reason behind it that we are not achieving, we're not being able to achieving the goals properly? Who are actually responsible for that? What do you think?
Well, I think there are all kinds of reasons. Some of them are historic, actually. You know, I said I've been reading about the history of Bengal, but historically, it's fascinating that the Bengal region was one of the richest regions in the world. So how did it become impoverished? And you have to look at history, the things that happened over a very long time, that things changed in this rich, you know, region, and what happened over a long time. International interventions here, that kind of thing. There may have been positives in some ways from that. There were negatives as well. But that's part of the explanation I would give. Look, in history, you have to go back hundreds of years in a way to answer your question. You know, it didn't just start, Bangladesh didn't just kind of start 20 years ago or something. There's always a history there. So that's part of where you'll get an answer to your question. Go back hundreds of years and see what happened there, that a rich region like Bengal could have experienced so much impoverishment. Of course, also, it's had a lot of disruption. We've talked about this before. You know, the Liberation War, the natural disasters, some of them, you know, quite horrendous. And they create real problems for a country. And it has to be a tribute to a country like Bangladesh that it's actually done as well as it has. You know, the notable indicators that have been picked up all over the world about how the economy's been improving. And, you know, we've seen the contribution, you know, I'm linked to BRAC. The BRAC movement itself has helped with that. The garment industry, empowering women, even in a modest way, has helped to build up the economy. You know, and I think one of the things I notice, I always have to speak a little cautiously because I'm a guest in the country, but one of the things I notice is the genuine commitment of the government to education, that it believes in education and wants to see it improved, and who cannot respect that? You know, something I'm living in every day and seeing the evidence of the government's genuine commitment to education. But then you talk about some of the problems in society, and I think there is an issue, I think, for the country to think about. What is the relationship between economic development, you know, and good governance and so on? And for any country, we can say this neutrally, I can say this about my own country, the UK, any country will benefit from good governance. It's worth investing in that you have good governance. Another thing, also, final thing I think I'd say to you, Sakif, is, I'm touched to talk to you and your colleagues because you're one of a number of organizations in Bangladesh, young people. You know, you really want this country to develop. And one of the things that strikes me is that I think there are huge numbers of young people across Bangladesh, you know, who are really proud of this country and quite passionate about it, actually. And I think one of the questions for the government, really, you've asked about some of these issues, governance and so on. Tree up. I mean, I know that the population of Bangladesh is largely young, actually. So you are even more crucial than some other countries. You know, in Japan, there's a largely older population, but here in Bangladesh, you young people are dominating the country. So I think those are answers I'd give. I think there are various explanations why Bangladesh has had issues. Some of them are historical, actually. You can't beat yourselves up too much about some of that. This country has done incredibly well in many ways, but there are shortfalls. And those things can be addressed, obviously, any country, investment in good governance and in empowering young people, helping young people to make a really good contribution to continue building this place up. I think those are some of the things I'd say in answer to your question.
Thank you, sir. Well, sir, I have an announcement for our audience. So let me speak in Bengali. Well, আমি আমার দর্শকের উদ্দেশ্যে একটু বলে নিচ্ছি, সেটা হচ্ছে
I wonder what the announcement is.
দুঃখিত দর্শক, ইন্টারনেট জটিলতার কারণে অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমার নেটওয়ার্ক চলে গিয়েছিল। আমি দর্শকদের উদ্দেশ্যে একটু বলে নেই, সেটা হচ্ছে ইউনাইটেড অ্যাকশন ফাউন্ডেশন নতুন একটি প্রজেক্ট নিয়ে আপনাদের সামনে এসেছে। প্রজেক্টটার নাম হচ্ছে প্রজেক্ট স্বাবলম্বী। আমরা এখানে যেটা করব সেটা হচ্ছে আমরা বিভিন্ন কেস হাতে নিব। যেমন এমন কিছু মানুষকে আমরা আপনাদের সামনে নিয়ে আসবো যাদেরকে হয়তো সামান্য কিছু সাহায্য করতে পারলে তাদের হয়তো একটা পার্মানেন্ট অ্যাসেট করে দেওয়া সম্ভব, বা ভবিষ্যতের জন্য হয়তো তাদেরকে একদম পুরো দমে স্বাবলম্বী করে দেওয়া সম্ভব। যেমন আমরা অলরেডি একটা মানুষের ভিডিও আপনাদের এখানে দিয়েছি, আপনারা হয়তো দেখতে পারবেন আমাদের ইভেন্ট পেজে গেলে, অথবা আমাদের অফিসিয়াল ফেসবুক পেজে গেলে আপনারা হয়তো সেটা দেখতে পারবেন। সেখানে দেয়া আছে একজন মানুষের অ্যাকচুয়ালি তার যেই দুর্বল জায়গাটা সেটা এখানে আমরা তুলে ধরেছি। সেই মানুষটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি করোনা পরিস্থিতির ভিকটিম অনেক দিক থেকেই। তার পা ভেঙে যায় এবং পরবর্তীতে সে যখন প্রায় লম্বা সময় চিকিৎসা করে আসার পর, তার জমি জমা বিক্রি করে প্রায় 3 লক্ষ টাকার মতো খরচ করে চিকিৎসা করে আসার পর সে যখন একটু স্টেবল কন্ডিশনে আসে, তখন দেখা যায় যে সে করোনা প্যান্ডেমিকে আটকা পড়ে এবং এখানে সে ত্রাণ সংগ্রহ করতে যায়, সরকারি ত্রাণ সংগ্রহ করতে যায়। এবং সেখানে ত্রাণ সংগ্রহ করতে গিয়ে সে যেই পায়ে ব্যথা পেয়েছিল সেখানে আবার ব্যথা পায়। এবং এই মানুষটা এখন আর কিছু করে খেতে পারছে না। তাই আমরা যে সিদ্ধান্ত নিয়েছি, আপনাদের সকলকে সাথে নিয়ে আমরা তাকে একটি ভ্যান কিনে দেবো, এবং সেটার মাধ্যমে সে, তো আপনারা কেউ যদি আমাদের এই প্রজেক্ট স্বাবলম্বীতে সহায়তা করতে চান এবং কোনোভাবে কন্ট্রিবিউট করতে চান, তাহলে স্ক্রিনে দেখানো নাম্বারে যোগাযোগ করতে পারেন। এবং যদি তারপরেও কোনো প্রশ্ন থাকে ফার্দার কোয়েরিজের জন্য, আপনারা অবশ্যই আমাদের অফিসিয়াল ফেসবুক পেজে আপনারা মেসেজ দিলে আমরা সেটা রিপ্লাই করব। অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ আপনাকে। আমি আবার মিস্টার ডেভকে আমার সাথে যুক্ত হবার জন্য আহ্বান জানাচ্ছি। Thank you so much, sir. Hope you can hear me, right?
Okay, yes, I did. Yeah.
Well, sir, I know that you love to work with young generation and you love to support our youth. Actually, what makes you enthusiastic to work with our youth, work with our young generation?
Well, I mean, I suppose in a way, the way my life has turned out, my whole life is in education. So there was something obviously that attracted me to that. And I think it's partly a sense of the wonderful things. You know, I was attracted to work not just with young people, but all sorts of people in universities, because of the wonderful potential there is, you know, to change society and to enrich society through education. And that attracts lots of people to work in universities. In a way, I suppose, have a sense of social idealism, really. I think that's true. And I think that I love to see social idealism in other people. And, you know, coming to Bangladesh, it was not long before there were opportunities to meet young people in organizations. And one of the things that struck me was the numbers of organizations set up by young people. I mean, you're an example, and I could give you so many examples. And who wouldn't want to work with those organizations if you got a chance? You know, it's motivating. And it's quite a privilege, actually, if people think that in those organizations that you could be of some help in some way. But it's really motivating, quite enthusing to have contact with people who are kind of building up the country in one way or another. So I think, you know, you work in mental health. I've met young people who are helping in hospitals, running schools for disadvantaged children, doing all sorts of things. And it's quite striking. There's a whole network of these young people right across the country. So, yeah, naturally, I'm attracted to work with them very much and really appreciate every opportunity to do that.
Sir, I know that you are one of those persons who actually supports the youth pretty well, and you love to work with them. So thank you so much for that, that you love to support the youth. And so that you work like an inspiration for us, and we follow you in some perspective, that your words, your ways and everything. Thank you for being with us, and thanks for work as an angel for us. Thank you so much, sir. Well, so can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Yes.
I think, Sakif, what I'd say also, just to add to that, I think it's interesting. You see universities, schools, all sorts of organizations where there are just huge numbers of people who are working with young people. I can think of so many people, the teachers, I wish I could give you some examples, social workers, all sorts of people who are involved in kind of building up society. So it's great for anyone to be part of that kind of movement, really.
Well, let's take some comments, because our viewers are commenting right below the live.
Really?
So let's take some comments.
I can't see them. Yeah.
Walid bin Ishtiaq said, "Nice meeting you, Dev sir."
Well, that's very
Thank
nice.
you so much,
Walid. Thank
Ishtiaq.
you very much too. Thank you, Suman.
Shumon Mridha, Dev Dowland sir, it's a great person. Love and respect. Thank you so much, Shumon Mridha.
It's a nice thing to say. Okay.
Ifat Jahan Ifa, UAP is doing such a great job, and we are pleased to have you, Dev Dowland sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ifat Jahan Ifa, for commenting here. And yes, Dev sir is pleased. And Mohammad Rifat bin Naim, happy to see you, sir, with United Action Foundation. Thank you so much, Rifat bin Naim. Well, Nishat Chaudhary, great to see you, Dev sir, with United Action Foundation. Thank you so much, Nishat Chaudhary, for commenting here and for supporting us. Fatima Afrin Shammi, we are happy to have you in our show. Yes, we actually are happy to have Dev sir in our show. Thank you so much, Fatima Afrin Shammi. Well, Riyad Hussain, good to see you, Dev sir. Thank you so much, Riyad Hussain.
Thank you.
Well, said Mahdi Hussain, good to see you, sir. It's a great pleasure to have you in United Action. Thank you so much, Said Mahdi Hussain. Thanks for commenting. Stay with us and keep watching the show.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Well, sir, then according to your speech, actually, we have some opportunities we have actually some opportunities, and our youth are our hope, right?
Yeah.
So we can note that the youths are our hope. So actually, what do you see as the future opportunities of this country?
Well,
maybe we have a lot.
Well, there are really, if you think about it. I mean, Bangladesh is a highly populated country in South Asia. And what is it? I don't know, 20% of the population of the world is in South Asia. And the center of political and economic gravity has perhaps moved really to Asia, to South Asia. So this is a happening place in the world. Now it's been disrupted by coronavirus, of course, but that should not stop the momentum. So this is a great place to be. And, we were talking about earlier on, there's already been some significant economic development here to build on. So you can see there are some obvious opportunities here. I think also that you are, as we said earlier, such a young country. You're of the generations that form the larger part of the population of this country. So hopefully between you can help to take it forward. So the opportunities in many ways are obvious. We've talked about some of the things that could be addressed to give Bangladesh a better chance. Now, I think one of the things I'd say, obviously I work in higher education. So I think just to say quickly about that, I think there are some good institutions in Bangladesh, but they can work together to improve standards and quality and the support they give their students. And I think to become much more internationally connected. And Bangladesh should get to a position where it has some of the top universities in Asia, actually. That would be good to see. So there's a real opportunity, to do that. Bangladesh really should have some of the top universities in Asia. There's no doubt about it. So all sorts of opportunities to, if the country goes about it the right way, to move forward. It could get quite exciting, but there are certain things that need to be done to open the way to that future.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, we are in the very last portion of our show, so we have to come to an end.
Yes.
Would you like to say something for our organization, and would you like to give some advice regarding our works and as well as this show?
Well, you know, it's been so good to meet so many organizations like yours, you know, organization of young people in Chittagong, who running schools for disadvantaged people, children, a group of young people who are working in a hospital helping unknown patients and effectively saving their lives, actually. And then coming across you, I just heard of your organization a couple of weeks ago when you got in touch. And, you know, to hear about the work you're doing in mental health, there's so much to be done there. And I think you've been quite busy with the pandemic going on as well. And I'm fascinated really how you created this organization, because in a sense, you're kind of entrepreneurs, really. You know, you've seen a need to do something there, something valuable socially, and you've got together and you're doing it. So I think I would want just to say, you know, to really reinforce you in what you're doing and to say, you know, carry on doing it. Possibly then also look for links with some of the other organizations as well, other young people who are like you, because there are so many of you around the place and you'll get a lot of encouragement from that. Also, I think there may be some good international links from you. You know, lots of people around the world, you know, people who are good on entrepreneurial development, for instance, experts on that who would be quite happy to give you probably free encouragement and support as you develop your organization. And there may be ways of linking you to some of them if that's useful to you as well. So I think that's all that I'd say to you. I think it's fantastic, you know, that you've gripped a social problem like this and you're out there and you're doing it, and, you know, look for more resources to help yourselves. So, you know, thank you very much. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much for your kind advice, sir, and thanks a lot for being with us. It was my pleasure to get you as our guest, as our honorable guest, actually. Thanks for supporting us. Stay blessed and hope to see you again. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks. The pleasure's been all mine, you know, and thank you to you, everybody involved. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Good night.
Good night.
দর্শক, এতক্ষণ মিস্টার ডেভ ডোল্যান্ড আমাদের সাথে ছিলেন। উনি অসম্ভব ভালো একজন মানুষ, অসম্ভব ভালো মনের একজন মানুষ। উনি নিজের পক্ষ থেকে যতটুকুই পারেন আমাদের ইউথ অর্গানাইজেশন গুলোকে সাপোর্ট করার চেষ্টা করেন, এবং যে কোনো ধরনের অবস্টাকল ফেস করলে উনি অ্যাডভাইস দিয়ে সেখান থেকে বের করে আনার চেষ্টা করেন। উনি আজকে আমাদের গেস্ট ছিলেন। আমি সত্যি খুব গর্ববোধ করছি ওনার সাথে একটা শো করতে পারি, এবং আমার খুবই ভালো লেগেছে ওনার সাথে এত লম্বা সময় কথা বলতে পেরে। দর্শকদেরকে অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ আমার সাথে থাকার জন্য। এবং আমি সর্বশেষে আবার বলে দিই, সেটা হচ্ছে আমাদের একটা প্রজেক্ট, ইউনাইটেড অ্যাকশন ফাউন্ডেশনের একটা প্রজেক্ট বর্তমানে চালু আছে। সেটা হচ্ছে প্রজেক্ট স্বাবলম্বী। আপনারা জানেন ইউনাইটেড অ্যাকশন ফাউন্ডেশন মানুষের জন্য কাজ করে। এটাও তেমন একটা প্রজেক্ট। এখানে অ্যাকচুয়ালি যারা করোনা প্যান্ডেমিকের ভিকটিম, অথবা এমন কিছু মানুষ, বা বন্যায় ভিকটিম হতে পারে, অথবা এমন কিছু মানুষ যারা অ্যাকচুয়ালি সামান্য কিছু সাপোর্টের অভাবে, যারা অ্যাকচুয়ালি নিজেদেরকে তুলে ধরতে পারছে না, বা সামান্য কিছু সাপোর্টের অভাবে বেশ মানবেতর জীবনযাপন করছে, আমরা তাদের জন্য এই প্রজেক্টটা নিয়ে এসেছি। প্রজেক্টটা হচ্ছে প্রজেক্ট স্বাবলম্বী। এটাতে আমরা এমন কিছু মানুষকে আপনাদের সামনে নিয়ে আসবো যাদেরকে অল্প কিছু সহায়তা করলে তারা হয়তো অনেক দূরে গিয়ে যাবে এবং তারা স্বাবলম্বী হবে। সেই প্রেক্ষিতে আমরা একটি ভিডিও দিয়েছিলাম আমাদের পেজ থেকে, সেটা হয়তো আপনারা অনেকে দেখেছেন, না দেখলে দেখে থাকবেন। সেখানে আমরা একজনকে তুলে এনেছি। সেই মানুষটা অ্যাকচুয়ালি পক্ষাঘাতগ্রস্ত, তার এক পা প্রায় কাজ করে না বললেই চলে, বেশ মানবেতর জীবনযাপন সে করে। সেজন্য আমরা যা করতে চাচ্ছি সেটা হচ্ছে আপনাদের সহায়তায়, আপনাদের সবাইকে সাথে নিয়ে তাকে একটি ভ্যান কিনে দিতে চাচ্ছি, যেটাতে করে সে অবশ্যই ভ্যান চালাতে পারবে না, তবে সেটাতে করে সে এক জায়গায় বসে হয়তো শাকসবজি বিক্রি করতে পারবে, যেটা সে নিজে আমাদের কাছে চেয়েছে, এবং তার মাধ্যমে সে তার জীবিকা নির্বাহ করতে পারবে এবং তার পরিবার চালাতে পারবে। আমরা আশা করব আপনাদের সামগ্রিক সহায়তা আমরা পাবো, এবং আমরা এই প্রজেক্টটা সামনের দিকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যেতে পারবো। অসংখ্য ধন্যবাদ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য। আমরা হয়তো আগামী সপ্তাহে আবার দ্য এনলাইটেনিং শো এর 11তম এপিসোড নিয়ে আপনাদের মাঝে চলে আসবো। ততদিন পর্যন্ত সবাই ভালো থাকবেন, সুস্থ থাকবেন। আমি মেজবাহুল ইসলাম সাকিব, সবাইকে জানাচ্ছি শুভরাত্রি।